My name is Nora Bellamy, and I am 36 years old. 12 hours after my family threw my daughter's birthday cake into the trash, they called me before sunrise begging me to save my sister's wedding. Ava had just turned 8. The cake had her name written in lavender icing. I found it crushed face down in my mother's kitchen garbage, while everyone in the next room raised champagne glasses for my sister Celeste's engagement. My mother told me not to embarrass the family. I did not. I picked up my daughter, drove home, and made a new birthday at our own kitchen table with a supermarket chocolate cake and 8 crooked candles. But there was something my family did not know that night. The wedding they were celebrating had already used my name, my credit, and a signature I never wrote. Before I tell you how that came apart, take a second to subscribe if stories about family boundaries and quiet justice speak to you. And tell me where you are listening from tonight. I always read those comments. In my family, Celeste was the delicate one and I was the strong one. Those words sound harmless until you learn what they cost. Celeste needed rides, money, patience, second chances. I needed nothing, or at least that was the story my mother, Elaine, preferred to tell. When Celeste cried, the room rearranged around her. When I cried, someone handed me a task. I became a forensic accountant because numbers were the first language that never lied to me. I follow money through shell accounts, missing invoices, forged reimbursements, and signatures that do not belong where they appear. Companies call me when someone has been stealing quietly. I am good at it because I do not panic. I document. Ava's birthday was supposed to be small. I had planned a backyard afternoon with paper lanterns, pizza, and the lavender cake she chose herself. Then my mother called and said everyone would already be gathering Saturday for Celeste's engagement. News, so why not fold Ava's little birthday into it? She said it would be easier. In our family, easier always meant easier for everyone except me. We arrived at my mother's house at 1 in the afternoon. The porch was covered with cream and gold balloons spelling congratulations. Not happy birthday. Not a VA. Inside, framed engagement photos of Celeste and her fiancé Grant line the dining table. A champagne tower hummed on the kitchen counter. Ava's cake sat pushed against the toaster, still in its box like an object nobody wanted to admit had arrived. Celeste walked through the room in a white dress, holding out her ring hand like a weather report. She barely looked at Ava. My mother kissed my cheek and whispered that we would do Ava's candles later, after the proper toast. I watched my little girl stand beside me, holding a handmade card for her grandmother, trying to decide if she was allowed to be excited. The toast stretched into speeches, photographs, laughter, and a story about Grant's proposal that everyone had heard 3 times. At 3 o'clock, Ava stopped asking about the candles. She just stared at the floor. That was when I went into the kitchen to find the cake. The cake was not on the counter. I opened the trash can looking for a paper plate and saw the box folded sideways under coffee grounds. The cake was upside down, lavender icing smeared against a greasy napkin. 3 letters of my daughter's name were still visible through the mess. A-V-A. Celeste stood in the doorway with 2 bridesmaids and a champagne flute. When she saw me looking, she laughed. "Oh, Nora, don't look so dramatic," she said. "It was only a store cake. Ava is not worth ruining the counter display over." One bridesmaid giggled. The other looked away. Then Ava's hand slid into mine. She had heard it. She was 8 years old, looking up at me with a face that was already learning how adults decide what children are worth. I knelt, wiped frosting dust from her shoe, and said, "Get your backpack, sweetheart. We are leaving." I did not shout. I did not throw anything. Time equals, quote, 0.45 seconds, quote, slash greater than I simply chose my daughter in a room where nobody else had. On the drive home, Ava was quiet for 9 minutes. Then she asked, "Mom, am I not really part of them?" I kept my eyes on the road because if I looked at her, I might have broken. "You are the most real family I have," I told her. "And anyone who cannot see that does not get to stand close enough to hurt you." We stopped at a grocery store. She chose a chocolate cake because she said chocolate felt braver than vanilla. At home, I cleared our kitchen table, lit 8 candles, sang badly on purpose, and watched her laugh with frosting on her chin. After she fell asleep, I sat on the floor with my back against the cabinets and made one rule for the rest of my life: nobody would make that child feel disposable again. That would have been the end of it if my family had only been cruel. But cruelty was just the doorway. By sunrise, I learned they had also been using me. The first call came at 6:47 the next morning. My mother did not apologize. She said I had humiliated Celeste by leaving. She said my sister had cried for hours. Then she reached for the sentence that had trained me for 3 decades. "Nora, you have always been the strong one. You can take a little hurt. Celeste cannot." I almost believed her again. Then I remembered Ava asking if she was real family. 2 months earlier, I had received an alert about an old joint account I opened years before when my mother had surgery and needed help paying medical bills. My name was on it. So was Elaine's. Later, without telling me, she had added Celeste. I tried to close it, Kirk. The bank said it required all 3 signatures in person because it was an old legacy account. I could freeze a new card, but dormant authorized cards would stay active until the account closed. Celeste ignored my texts. My mother said she would handle it after the engagement party, so the account remained half frozen and fully dangerous. That afternoon, while the family group chat mocked me for leaving over a cake, I did what I do for clients. I opened every account, every card, every pending transaction. The old joint account showed a charge for $7,420 to Cedar Hollow Hall, Celeste's wedding venue. I had never called Cedar Hollow. I had never agreed to pay for the wedding. I searched my email and found a confirmation buried in the promotions folder. "Thank you, Miss Bellamy, for securing your event date." The attached contract listed me as the responsible party. My name was typed neatly on the line. Under it was a signature that looked like someone had practiced my handwriting from a Christmas card. Then I found the second document, a credit pre-approval application submitted online using my name, my birth date, and my mother's address. Not mine. Elaine's house. The house where Celeste still lived. They had not asked me for help. They had built a paper version of me and tried to make her pay. I printed everything. The venue contract, the bank statement with the Cedar Hollow charge circled in blue, the record of my earlier bank call, the credit application with my identity and the wrong address. I placed all of it in a gray envelope and wrote one sentence on the front: "I did not sign this." People assume I called my sister screaming. I did not. Screaming is what people do when they have no record. I called the bank fraud department. I gave them dates, account numbers, the venue name, the earlier closure request, and the identity theft application. The agent's tone changed when I mentioned the credit form. Time equals, quote, 0.45 seconds, quote, slash, greater than a fraud claim was opened. The charge was reversed pending investigation, and the venue's deposit was pulled back. I understood exactly what that meant. A wedding date without a valid deposit becomes unsecured. A bride who forged a payment suddenly has 14 days to fix what she stole. I did not create the collapse. I simply stopped financing it. The call came the next morning. My mother was crying the way she cries when she wants witnesses. Cedar Hollow had contacted Celeste. The deposit failed. They needed $7,420 within 14 days, or the date would be released. Invitations had already gone out. Grant's family had booked flights. Could I please call the bank and fix the mistake like I always did? There it was, like I always did. The whole job description of my childhood, and I told her I would not call the bank. She said, "Are you really going to destroy your sister's wedding over a cake?" I said, "No, Mom, I am going to protect my daughter and my name over a crime." She started yelling. Yeah, I hung up. Celeste arrived at noon, furious and frightened. I slid the gray envelope across my kitchen table. She opened it, and for the first time in my life, I watched my sister run out of story. She said it was family money. Time equals, quote, 0.45 seconds, quote, slash, greater than she said Mom knew. She said Grant thought I would never notice. That was the sentence that chilled me most. Not that they had stolen from me, that they had calculated my silence. 3 days later, my mother summoned everyone to her living room for a family meeting. She invited Celeste, Grant, 2 aunts, 3 cousins, and Ms. Harlan from Cedar Hollow Hall. She thought witnesses would pressure me into saving the wedding. She did not understand that witnesses are only dangerous when you are lying. I dropped Ava with Aunt Vivian, the one relative who had texted me after the party to say I did the right thing. Then I drove to my mother's house with 3 copies of the gray envelope. The living room was arranged like a little courtroom. My mother sat at the center, Celeste beside her, Grant stiff and pale. Ms. Harlan held a leather folder on her lap. My mother began beautifully, and Nora was hurt. Nora misunderstood. Nora overreacted. But Nora was dependable, responsible, strong. Nora would call the bank and straighten out the deposit because family takes care of family. Every face turned toward me, waiting for the old version to sit down and apologize. I did not apologize. I placed the envelopes on the coffee table and handed 1 copy to Ms. Harlan. Then I spoke the way I speak in an investigation, slowly, plainly, and only in facts. This contract lists me as the responsible party. I did not sign it. This bank statement shows a $7,420 charge to Cedar Hollow Hall on an account I tried to close weeks earlier. I did not authorize it. This credit application uses my name, my birth date, and this address, where I do not live. I reported it as fraud, and I will not withdraw that report. The room went quiet in a way my family had never offered me before. Ms. Harlan read fast. Her face hardened. Then she closed her folder and said, If the reservation was secured with a fraudulent payment and a forged responsible party agreement, Cedar Hollow Hall cannot continue this booking. We will release the date. That sentence did what my anger never could and made the truth official. Celeste screamed that I was jealous. Grant stood up and said he had only followed what Celeste told him. My mother turned on me one last time. You have always been the strong one, she pleaded. You can absorb this. She cannot. For the first time, I heard the words clearly. Strong meant available for sacrifice. Strong meant useful. Strong meant the person they could rob and then shame for objecting. I looked at my mother and said, "You are right. I am strong enough to stop carrying this." Aunt Vivian stood from the back of the room. She said she had seen Ava's cake in the trash and heard what Celeste said about that child. Then she asked the room why nobody had cared until the wedding money disappeared. Nobody answered, because the answer was on every face. I gathered my copies, left the fraud report open, and walked out through the same kitchen, where Ava's card had sat ignored on the counter. I did not slam the door. I had spent my whole life cleaning up their messes. That day, I finally let them sit in one. The fraud claim went through. The $7,420 was clawed back. The joint account was closed for cause. The credit application under my name was frozen before it opened a line. Cedar Hollow kept a $1,900 administrative fee and released the wedding date. Celeste and Grant did not make it to the altar. My mother left 17 voicemails in 2 weeks. Angry, wounded, sweet, angry again. I saved them in a folder I will probably never open. Aunt Vivian comes over on Sundays now. She teaches Ava card games and brings blueberry muffins. That is the only piece of that side of the family I kept. On Ava's next birthday, we had another chocolate cake. She blew out the candles in our kitchen and laughed so hard the smoke curled around her face. I printed the photo and put it on the refrigerator. She looks at it, sometimes like a child who knows she is worth protecting. People ask if I feel guilty. I did not destroy my family. I stopped absorbing the damage they created and let the damage return to its owner. There is a difference. The old version of me would have called that cruel. The woman I am now calls it accuracy. I did not need revenge. I needed the balance sheet of my life to finally show where the debt truly belonged. For 30 years, being the strong one meant paying for everyone else's choices, swallowing every insult, and making every room comfortable at my own expense. The day I stopped paying was the day I learned what strength was actually for. Not to carry people who keep dropping their consequences in your hands. To protect the one small person watching you learn how to set them down. That is my story. It would have one cake in the trash, one forged signature, one fraud report, and one little girl who will never again have to ask if she is real family. If you have ever been called strong as a way to keep you quiet, take this as permission to put the burden down. Share this with someone who needs it tonight. Leave a comment and subscribe for the next story. And if you are the one who always fixes everything, remember this: a boundary is not the end of love. Sometimes it is the first honest proof of it.